listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today. We have another show lined up for y'all today, and we have a special guest, Dr. Erika Rasure. She is not just somebody who knows about money. She's someone who has a lot of credibility. If you go to her website and Google her name, you're going to see probably every single brand that you ever thought was big because she's been associated with them and doing big things. She's a financial wellness expert, a former financial advisor, and university professor. She has a lot on her calendar, so I'm shocked that she said yes to do the show, which is amazing, makes me feel great. But she also has a story, just like any of our guests. She is a chief financial wellness advisor at Beyond Finance. That website, if you want to put in your notes or mental note, is beyondfinance.com. But I want to cut to the chase because I already talked to her in the green room, and she knows that when I have a big dog like her on the show, it's going to take 10 hours just to go through her resume. So first and foremost, Dr. Erika Rasure, how you doing?
Thank you. I'm glad to be in the room with another big dog, sir.
Man, if you call me a big dog, man, wow, that's a compliment. I appreciate that because when you think about, and I like going like with the flow, when you think about your journey in your professional career, a lot of people talk about their awards and accolades, but when you think about what you had to push through just to get to where you are, we know it's not easy. But what's one thing that you kept in your back pocket to remind you, man, no matter what adversity I hit, I could always rise to the occasion and execute?
My guiding light in that philosophy is I have accomplished 100% of the hard things that life put in front of me. And so what makes me think I won't accomplish 100% of the things life throws at me going forward? I got a good track record. You know, life is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to throw you all kinds of stuff. But I've overcome every one of those single things. And so knowing that I can overcome whatever comes next, that's what keeps me going.
When you think about all the financial stuff, you know, all the vocabulary, all the great things, you get the knowledge. What inspired you to transition from financial advising and university teaching into financial therapy?
It's the emotions, it's the people, it's the helping people understand that money is a process of becoming, and it's not becoming such a new, improved version of yourself that you don't recognize yourself. It's getting people to remove the layers so they can see what's already been there the whole time. We just as human beings, we have things thrown at us constantly. Our nervous systems are often a wreck, and any decision we make about anything in our life, you know, whether it's our relationships or our money, if we do it with that kind of filter on, it's not going to give us the results. So what I seek to do is help people remove the filter so they get to the real, true, honest versions of themselves that have been beautiful and there all along.
Man, that was so good. I was got me choked up here, man. When you think about how amazing life is, and I say that because life does get crazy. Yeah. And we either pivot and make adjustments or we get swallowed up by our excuses and what we think is hardship. Mm-hmm. How do you keep yourself, or how did you keep yourself focused in the dry seasons? Because we all have one. And when you look at all the blessings you have now, what keeps you grounded?
For me, it's faith, to be perfectly honest. You know, whether it is, you know, the universe or God or yourself, whatever that is, I believe that there is something bigger and more powerful at work. And I believe that we are, you know, a cog in that wheel. And so my job during any sort of dry spell or, you know, a time of scarcity or perceived scarcity, you know, was very much focus on making sure I stay connected with myself instead of focusing on all of those external things that are diverting my attention away from whatever mission is at hand here. I don't know all the answers. I don't know why things are happening. You know, people always say, you know, this everything happens for a reason. And yeah, I'm sure it does. But I'm not going to get hung up on those details of the why. I'm going to get hung up on the details of making myself feel more connected to whatever I can connect to. So whether that's through meditation or prayer or moving my body or making sure that I am present for my kids or my animals or my family, whatever that is, it's staying anchored as much as I can and really taking care of my nervous system and making sure that whatever filter I make a decision from, is going to be the one that gets me to where I want to go. If I'm so focused on the why, and the why of the things I have no control over, that's where you get distracted and disconnected from self.
As people are snapping their fingers on the podcast world with headphones, when you think about the word anchor, I like that word visually, because when you look at finances and different seasons of, man, life hits, you get in debt, or, you know, you made some bad decisions money-wise. When you think about financial therapy, someone who's listening and watching this and hear that phrase for the first time, kind of break down, what does financial therapy actually mean for someone hearing it for the first time?
Of course, financial therapy, the best way to look at it is that it is a discipline that deals with the emotional, relational, the cognitive, the brain stuff that's going on, and the behavioral aspects of how we experience our money. At the end of the day, money isn't just math. And in fact, I would argue that financial habits are emotional habits. And when we are able to bring some awareness to our emotions that underpin our financial behaviors, our decisions, it might help us understand a little bit more why we are the way we are with money, and start to take some of this shame and blame and guilt out of it when we're able to understand the conditions in which we're making our financial choices. And I'm all about changing conditions for the better. We're going to set a better set of conditions so you can get the outcome you want. That has to do with, regulating your nervous system, understanding your beliefs and your values around money, where they came from, understanding the systems in which your, money operates and works or doesn't work so well. Whether we need to simplify stuff. We learn how to take evidence of the things you know how to do well with money and build that up into small little bits. So you build self-trust in yourself. You empower yourself to finally get to that place where no matter what life throws at you, because it's going to throw a whole bunch at you, that you're able to stand in those waves and be okay. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get a little bruised or knocked up, or knocked around, here or there, but you're going to be able to say, I'm still standing. And this is what I've learned, but I've learned so much here about creating these conditions, that these conditions here aren't going to shake me as much.
And you help people understand emotional and behavioral patterns behind debt. And that's a big word that people really are not a stranger to. So when you think about debt, what are some of the common emotional patterns that you see in people who struggle with it?
So by far the biggest emotional condition I see with people who are experiencing the financial condition of a debt is shame. And I think that is something most all of us can relate to. Most of us have been in some kind of debt, whether it might just be a little bit of credit card debt or a lot of bit of credit card debt, or even more than we can possibly fathom. I think most people can relate to that feeling that comes with, I am bad with money. And that's the difference I think we've got to acknowledge too, between feelings of guilt versus feelings of shame. Guilt is, I feel regret that I made this choice, and maybe it wasn't my best or brightest moment, but I'm able to move on from it. Shame is, I am bad because I made this choice. It's very much internalizing you, and it's just internal character assassination. So that's the thing I see probably the most. The second thing I would say I see after that are feelings of avoidance. If I don't acknowledge it, it's not there. And I'm all about bringing awareness to our financial situations, but I'm also about bringing awareness to the why you might feel that way. And again, it's a lot of times rooted in shame, but it's also sometimes rooted in some of those generational, money stories that we heard. The majority of the people I talk to who are in debt at one point heard from, the important grown-ups in their life, we are people who pay our debt back. If you are somebody who doesn't pay your debt back, you are not a good person. If you have a credit score that is below 700, you are not a good person. If you are not paying, your creditors on time, you are not a good person. And so you find yourself with these external messages, the voices of the past and people you care about, and it creates such dissonance between where you are and how you feel. And the other interesting thing about debt is I think there is this pervasive idea out there that most debt comes because people have no willpower, no discipline, or no self-control, and they just overspend and overspend and overspend. And that might be true in some situations, but I've been doing this for 21 years. And in my line of work, what I've seen, I would say the majority, overwhelming majority, is that there's a life condition that happens before the financial condition of debt. So that is somebody getting diagnosed with breast cancer and even having insurance, but everything else has to go on the credit card because they're just trying to feed their family while, they're in however many chemotherapy treatments, all of those types of things. It's somebody losing a job. It's somebody losing a partner due to death or divorce. It's somebody getting scammed. Investment scams, romance scams, employment scams, crypto scams, you name them. Everybody has a story when it comes to their financial condition of debt. And it is not just as cut and dry as, I just can't control my spending.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio and watching us online. Talk to our special guest today, Dr. Erika Rasure. Go to her website, beyondfinance.com, where she serves as Chief Financial Wellness Advisor. When you think about the opportunities we have throughout time to address those issues, we can either run away from it or we can attack it head on. What's some of the best cases where you see people who benefit from not running away from the problem, but actually being honest with themselves and hitting it on the ground running?
Yeah, so being honest with yourself can be exceedingly difficult because sometimes there's parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge, right? And I think we've all got that shadow self that exists over here sometimes, and we don't want to confront that person because if we confront that person, what is that person going to tell us about ourselves? But at the end of the day, we already know, right? And so being able to say, all right, I'm going to be brave enough, and I am the one who is ultimately in control here. And anything that's scary out there, as it relates to this, isn't as scary as I'm probably making it up to be in my head, because we tell ourselves stories, we catastrophize, we make up the worst case scenarios, and we do that without any evidence to the contrary, right? We just say, okay, this is just going to be bad. If I confront this, I'm going to think I'm a terrible person, but you probably already think you're a bad person. So let's start, kind of counteracting those narratives, and let's challenge ourselves to finding evidence that you are not, in fact, bad with your money, that you are in control, that you do have self-trust in yourself that does exist, even if it is just a little sliver. Let's act on that. And then let's take tiny actions that compound, that build that self-trust, that build that evidence up, and give you the opportunity to let that grow and grow and grow. Hands down, when I'm working with people who have come to this place of I'm ready to start taking back my life a little bit. I'm ready to get back in the driver's seat instead of letting everything drive me. It's that they've asked for help. That is the common denominator here. They've gotten to the point where asking for help feels better than not asking for help. And when it comes to our money, asking for help can be a really, really big deal. Most people don't talk about money when money is good. And so why would somebody, involve their family or friends in something when money is not so good? Especially if they're afraid of being judged or shamed or, I can't believe you put yourself in a position where you got scammed. There's all of those things that can come up. But when you can find somebody who you can talk to, whether it's a financial therapist or, something like Beyond Finance or anybody out there who can help you bring some structure and simplify your thoughts, because we do suffer from a lot of decision fatigue. And when you don't trust yourself a ton right now, making the wrong decision also weighs on you heavily. And when you realize you're not alone in this, and when you realize that there are millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of people who are struggling with the exact same things that you are, you just happen to be the one that is willing to talk about it and bring it to light for yourself, that is a really, really powerful thing. And that itself can't be discounted. A lot of people don't have that kind of, courage or bravery. But if you have just a little tiniest bit of what I call specifically readiness, if you feel ready, even if it's just a little bit, you act on it. You get some help. You start talking to people about it, people you can trust. They don't have to be in your inner circle right now. I get the shame that can come from that. But bring people in who can help, because you are not alone. And that's probably the thing I would sing from the mountaintops as loud and proud as I could, is you are not alone. There are millions of people struggling with this. You just happen to be the one who's brave enough to take it to the next level for yourself.
For those listening and watching who never heard loud budgeting, kind of unpack that for us, and how does that help people to stay focused on their goals?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning, it's hard for people to talk about money. It's getting better, but it's difficult, right? Some of us have been told that talking about money is impolite. That's just not something we do in this family. We don't do that. So loud budgeting is a spin on that basically says we're not going to say that anymore. We're going to say things like, I am making really, really great progress towards my financial goals. And so no, I can't go play this round of golf this Sunday. No, I can't go to the brunch because I am killing it and I'm really, really proud of myself for doing what I need to do. It's not putting yourself in a place of restriction anymore. And I think that's where budgeting sometimes becomes like this really vilified B word, right? And budgeting can be beautiful. It can be bold. It can be brave. But we have to talk about it in those concepts before we, because before it seems restrictive, it feels punitive. And people kind of like make themselves so much smaller. There's this belittling process that comes in the budgeting process. If you are budgeting, that must be you outwardly saying something's wrong. If you're saying, I can't go out, people are going to think I can't afford to go out. And that's not necessarily true, is it? It's I'm actually, watching my dollars. I'm making sure I'm putting them to use for whatever financial goal it is I have. And I'm going to talk about it in those terms. I'm not going to talk about it in these punitive, restrictive, shrink myself down and make an excuse. I'm sick and I can't go golf. No, I'm not going to do this because I have this emergency fund I'm going to fund and I'm like $150 away from it. So it's either golf or this, and I'm going to choose this one today. And being able to have those conversations with those who are in your social or your family circle in an effort to maybe even encourage them to start talking about their financial goals, to heighten this conversation around money, to normalize this conversation around money, but to also normalize that it is perfectly normal to care about your finances and talk about them, to voice that you have values, that you have priorities, and that you're excited about them. Not that you're going to become some sort of social pariah because you can't engage in the third golf activity or the third brunch of the month. It's just saying, this is where my focus is, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm going to talk about it.
A lot of this goes with choices, and a lot of it also goes with childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. When you think people that you dealt with, how much does family history and childhood experience play in how adults think about money?
A lot. In fact, there's some research out there that says by the time you're 9 years old, and you've already developed and formed some pretty solid values and beliefs and feelings around money at that point. We say children are sponges, and we forget that also applies to money. And so by the time you're 9, you've already got kind of a sense of what money feels like in your household and how it's used, and some of those messages you receive from those important grown-ups in your life. And as you get older, you start to add more experiences. You get those experiences you learn from school or sports or church or your first jobs. All of those things, they start kind of accumulating on top of that, and those voices tend to get louder. And so by the time you're in your early 20s, mid-20s, you've got a lot to go through in terms of, okay, well, how do I make my own financial future going forward when I'm not sure if these values, these beliefs are mine, or if they belong to somebody else and their life experiences. And what I encourage people to do, because sometimes we hang on to values and priorities and beliefs that aren't ours because we feel like we have to out of loyalty or obligation. Our people raised us, and it would be, some of us feel like we would betray them if we went against something they had taught us about money, even if our life experiences don't match the life experiences where those values originated to begin with. So as I mentioned earlier, for example, let's say you went through a period where you lost your job, and maybe you went through a divorce, and your parents never experienced any of those things. And here you are trying to rumble with what they taught you about money, not having experienced those things, and now you're unable to pay your creditors, and you feel bad not only because you're in debt, but also because you've lost your job and you've gone through this divorce, and now you hear the voices of your parents in your head telling you that people who do this kind of stuff are bad people. What do you do? How do you move forward from that? And so that's where I see a lot of this start to show up. And I think it's really great to start taking some inventory, right, of where your values are, the ones you want to keep, the ones you might want to modify a little bit, and maybe get rid of some of those values that don't belong anymore. You can honor them and say, okay, they served me up to this point until I had these experiences, but my experiences are different. And now they're informing my values differently. And when my values are informed differently, it's going to inform my goals differently.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Dr. Erika Rasure. Go to her website, beyondfinance.com. Before we run out of time, I have another question for you to tie this all together. Someone's watching and listening to this right now, and they feel like they're trapped, and they feel like, man, I just need to make something happen. Maybe they're in a crisis. What would you say would be a good first step for them to start rebuilding their financial situation?
So first thing I would say to anybody is, number one, you are not alone. I know I've said that before, but I really will scream that from the mountaintops. You are not alone. There are so many people dealing with financial crises or challenges, whether it's debt, or you are in a major life transition, or so many people feel like they should know more about money than they do. And so that kind of makes them feel small. And, the truth is nobody knows everything about everything. And that's an okay place to be. But before you do anything, is make sure you're regulating that nervous system, because you can't make good choices that really, really benefit who you are at your core, and who you're meant to be revealed when all those crazy layers come off. You can't make those decisions from a dysregulated place. You really do have to work on centering your mind, your body, your soul. And you do that first before you even get to the math and to the numbers of it all, because you do have to spend some time really thinking about how you're taking care of yourself. Are you breathing? Are you moving your body a little bit? Are you creating the environment where the choices you make next will come from a place of clarity instead of fear or confusion or frustration? And it's not like you have to spend 6 months doing that, at all. But acknowledging that your nervous system is probably experiencing a major stress response, and we all manage stress differently, right? Fear, we've got flight, freeze, fawn. We've got all of those things that affect us. And if you are in survival mode when it comes to your money, we have to get out of survival mode first. So that's the number one step. And then we start asking for some help. We start coming to that centered place, that grounded place, and then we can start looking for options. We can start understanding our relationship with money a little better, and then we can really start seeking out, people. If you're looking for a financial therapist, the Financial Therapy Association has a directory. We definitely recommend checking that out there. If you're looking for help, with just getting some financial wellness resources, come visit me at beyondfinance.com. We have a financial wellness tab. I've got a curriculum up there you can work through. We've got a ton of free resources, tons of articles, just so much there that you can go through and start getting a sense of, okay, this is maybe where I'm at. This is my baseline. This is where I can go maybe get some help. Oh, this clicks a little bit more with maybe why I think this way, and just getting those wheels turning. But hands down, first and foremost, let's get you calm.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to Dr. Erika Rasure, Chief Financial Wellness Advisor at Beyond Finance. Again, you go to her website, beyondfinance.com. Can't believe the time is gone. But in closing, if you had one last thought for people to take away to encourage them to, hey, if you're alive right now, you can make your next best decision. What would you like to leave the audience?
Look for the evidence of the good. out there. Let's build that belief and that self-trust in yourself. I call them glimmers. This isn't an original idea of my own or anything like that, but especially when it comes to our finances or anything else. But if there is something icky out there that exists, if there's something bad out there, the opposite has to be true. Right? For every darkness, there's light. For every, good, there's bad, and everything in between. And so if you're finding yourself in a place where everything feels so heavy and you just can't seem to crawl out of things, we are programmed as humans, I think, to really look for the triggers, the more negative stuff out there, because it comes easy and because it's more noticeable in our bodies, right? And people talk about the negative stuff a little bit more than they do the positive. So start making a concerted effort for looking for the glimmers, the good out there. You got outside and you took a deep breath in the sunshine. That's a good thing. Or maybe you opened a bill and it didn't, cause any sort of anxiety in your chest. That's a good thing. You got to spend time with your kiddos. That's a good thing. Look for those glimmers. Look for the evidence that things are going right. Because what if they do? Instead of asking all the time, well, what if this happens? What if this goes wrong? What if it goes right? And look for the evidence of things going right. And look for the evidence of all the things you do right. Journal it. Keep note of it. That's what I always want to leave people with, is you are fully capable in building that belief in yourself. You just have to look for it, and you got to look for the good.
Doing this on Refocused Radio, talking to Dr. Erika Rasure. Go to our website, beyondfinance.com. That's beyondfinance.com. Like always, thank you for your time.